The New Order is trash. Ever since they were introduced, they've almost exclusively jumped their enemies and yet never managed to kill any of them. The individual members get practically zero time to shine, and their overall presence in the story has been almost completely diminished. So, let's talk about it. Technically speaking, the New Order was officially introduced in Chapter 207 when Izuki gets done announcing his JAA revolution and meets up with what's left of the original order. Izuki claims that this is the birth of the strongest group of assassins in history, but we'll quickly see how wrong he is. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to examine fights from each member of the New Order even before the group was officially formed to see what the supposed strongest group of assassins in history is actually working with. The New Order is currently comprised of Izuki, Oki, Torres, Tanabata, Kumanomi, and Gozu. This sounds like a relatively imposing group until you realize that the members have done just about nothing. So let's take a look at both the collective and individual wins and losses of the members and see how they really stack up. Torres beat Sakamoto 5 times in a row, which is quite possibly the most impressive thing anyone from the group has ever done. Izuki beat Takamura after stealing his personality. Kumanomi had an extreme diff fight with Hio, but she still won, and Gozu shocked Kamihate and an injured Shishiba. Now let's take a look at their flaws. Izuki is carried by the strongest character in the series and still can't kill anyone. I can count the number of times Oki has injured someone on one hand. Tanabata averages 2 guitar strums per fight. Kumanomi hasn't caught a win in 2 years. Gozu has been hit with cars and punched in the face almost as many times as he's used his powers. As you can see, the New Order, while it has one standout member in Torres, nobody else really does anything, and that's for a few reasons. For one, the reason Torres was ever even able to beat Sakamoto 5 times was because he was written to have his own individual fights. Sakamoto felt that he had to train, and because of that, Torres was able to have the fights with Sakamoto. Torres easily has the most screen time of any New Order member excluding Izuki and Kumanomi because they were introduced into the story well before he was. But for the characters that were introduced either at the same time or after Torres, Suzuki literally never allows them any individual screen time. Tanabata has never had more than like 2 lines of dialogue to illustrate how he feels. Oki just pulls up and commands other people to fight for him, and Gozu, while somewhat cool in his introduction, has quickly fallen to the same fate as the other 2 I just mentioned and is quickly falling into irrelevancy. To make the New Order actually imposing, Suzuki needs to emphasize their strength in a meaningful way. It's about showing, not telling. Rather than telling us that Izuki is a real threat because of the Takamura personality, show us Takazuki dealing real damage to people instead of failing to kill anybody despite his supposed power. Instead of telling us that the New Order is the strongest group of assassins ever, show us why they're so strong. Instead of giving us fights that always end with one of the fighters running away, relatively unscathed and very much alive, give us a fight with a legitimate ending. Give us fights with stakes. So what would that look like? Not having the New Order always travel as a group, especially since Suzuki seems to hate concluding his fights normally now and just prematurely ends them by having someone back out. Having the New Order pull up together just makes each individual member look so much weaker and less impressive. They all attack one at a time before dropping some snarky one-liner, and then their teammate takes over for another 1 to 2 attacks. Again, this is the issue of individual members not having enough screen time. The other half of the problem is the fact that Suzuki writes the New Order to be fucking useless. How are you gonna tell me that the strongest group of assassins ever can't kill an exhausted Shin that's run out of luck? How are you gonna tell me that a Sakamoto who isn't even fighting back is tough to kill? How are you gonna tell me that Izuki missed Sakamoto's heart despite having access to Rion's killing path? There should be no reason Shin should even be able to perform CPR on Sakamoto, let alone telepathically communicate with his brain to make his heart keep beating, because Sakamoto shouldn't have a fucking heart. He literally has a hole in his chest. Obviously, Sakamoto should have never been written into a situation where such a convenience had to be contrived for him to get out, and I'm not expecting the guy who the series is named after to just die like that, but it's gone out of hand. And I know, Gaku literally had 4 holes in his torso and he still managed to come back with very little upset. The difference between this and Gaku's comeback is twofold. For one, the build-up to Gaku's near-death and revival was Nagumo vs Gaku, which is objectively better than any of the current fights. Secondly, Kashima was the one who saved Gaku, and Kashima has already had precedents set in the story for effectively being immortal. Him saving Gaku made more sense on a logistical standpoint compared to Shin saving Sakamoto, because Shin has never done something like this and shouldn't be able to, considering Sakamoto should have been stabbed in the heart. While the use of Shin's power is somewhat clever and generally makes sense, it feels like the whole mind-reading thing has just been turned into an all-purpose plot device to get the main cast out of trouble. To fully emphasize the New Order's incompetence, let's take a look at their performance at the Aquarium. Keep in mind that Shin is exhausted and is fully out of luck since Atari used the last bit to save him from Takazuki. So when the New Order pulls up, Kumanomi uses her electromagnet to launch Shin into a different part of the aquarium before Torres pulls up and blasts him one time. Now, despite the fact that Kumanomi literally said that they had already decided to kill Shin on site just 3 pages ago, the New Order decides to stand around with 0 people jumping in to attack and instead continue to emphasize the fact that Shin has 0 chance of escape. Not only is this ridiculous as they could just do their job and kill Shin, but it also doesn't make sense for someone like Oki who is so concerned with efficiency. Now, they managed to dilly-dally for long enough that Shin comes up with a plan to turn Takazuki against them, which is conveniently the only time that they attack as a group, so everyone just ends up attracting Takazuki's bloodlust. Gozu does his last useful thing in the story as he shocks everyone and brings back regular Izuki, but again, Izuki decides to dilly-dally some more, allowing Sakamoto to show up just in the nick of time to save Shin, despite Shin apparently being out of luck. Now here comes the real incompetence. A mentally nerfed Sakamoto who isn't even fighting back is now standing his ground against the New Order. Despite all of them being there, only Kumanomi and Gozu charge forward, with Gozu shocking Sakamoto, only to realize that it's not doing anything. Torres hops in to do his last attack for the fight, putting a hole in his shoulder before Gozu and Torres both drop out so Kumanomi and Tanabata can have their turn hitting Sakamoto one time. Meanwhile, Oki is literally just staring menacingly, acting like he's doing something, while Izuki is not even on the panels. Now fast forward a little bit and you still have the entire New Order fighting a Sakamoto who is just staring at them, and they still can't kill him. Kumanomi decides that she's gonna go kill Shin, so Sakamoto grabs her hand, prompting Izuki and Gozu to go after him instead of, I don't know, maybe just killing Sakamoto and then moving on. During all of this, Oki, Torres, and Tanabata are nowhere to be seen. Conveniently, Kumanomi forgets that she has another arm and lets Sakamoto use her electromagnet against the team, stopping Izuki and Gozu from escaping. So, Gozu tries to shock Sakamoto again, but Sakamoto goes into a car and then proceeds to hit Gozu with it. The same guy that can casually react to bullets is being hit with a regular car. Then Tanabata fulfills his quota of 2 strums of fight and destroys the car, before Izuki stabs Sakamoto in the heart, but not really. You think Izuki would have learned his lesson about dilly-dallying the first 2 times? But nah. He wastes time unsheathing the sword that he literally just stabbed Sakamoto with, allowing Shin and the gang to pull up and save him. Finally, Oki leaps into action, only to be hit by a car. The same guy that's relative to the people that routinely dodge and block bullets is being hit by a car. And again, the rest of the New Order is just watching. Gozu hops onto the hood of the car only to be punched by Boiled, and it's insane that this does anything. Gozu is the same guy scrapping with Shishiba, and even if Shishiba was injured, there is no world where Boiled of all people should be able to punch him in the face. Kumanomi finally uses her brain and starts pulling the car, but Heisuke shoots her once and she stops instead of just pulling the car again. Ultimately, the gang are able to escape the aquarium, with it looking like only Kumanomi and Gozu tried to even stop them, while the rest of their team is just non-existent. Overall, the New Order feels like your average ranked teammates. They have 0 coordination, which really sucks considering they travel as a pack. They all go in at their own pace and attack one at a time instead of using their numbers advantage, and they all seem to have 0 battle IQ.